playing in the NHL isn't easy because, there's so much competition. And you played in a time where there's been, and there were, and still are, great hockey players, some of the greatest of this era. And you talk about Sidney Crosby, Ovechkin, all these guys. Tell me, of all the 3 years that you were in the NHL and the time that you played, the 51 games with the Rangers the first year and the 16 games the second year and the 9 games against Minnesota, who was the player that you were just so starstruck that you played against?
Oh gosh, probably Sidney Crosby.
Mm.
We saw him obviously when I was in New York. We'd play against Pitt, and not a guy that I wanted to be stuck out on the ice against. No- Not a guy that was exactly in our game plan for me to be out on the ice against either. So I pretty well knew, like, if I saw 87 hop on, it was time to try to get a change, and hopefully you can find a time to do it. Otherwise, you're in one. So there were quite a few opponents that way for me. As a player, I knew what my role was on the team, and I accepted that. So there was never any pushback from me as far as the matchups or anything like that. But yeah, that would be a guy that I was definitely frightened of being on the ice against.
So actually, last week, ironically, we had former New Jersey Devils winger Cam Jansen on our show, and his cover photo is actually a picture of him fighting you, ironically enough. So I wanted to ask you, what was it like play against him and those Devils teams when you were with the Rangers?
Yeah, I actually never fought Janny. He was involved in a fight that I was involved in,
Oh,
but
okay.
it was a 3-on-3 fight. But yeah, no, I've done a podcast with him since then. I can't remember what it was for, or it was just maybe Mike Rupp was doing it for NHL Network, but we talked about that brawl and everything. And I don't really know Cam well off the ice, but just in my few dealings with him, he seems like a really good guy, really passionate guy, the kind of guy that you'd want to have on your team. So I think you find that a lot in that role. But it's weird. You hate each other while you're playing, and then as soon as you get to know those guys on the other side of it, you realize they're a lot like you, and a lot of times you end up being buddies or at least thinking highly of the person. So that's the way it goes around.
You've had a couple of interesting coaches that you were coached by in the NHL. Who really stuck out to you as a player? Who was the most interesting personality you've been around as a head coach?
Well, I think you already answered it a little bit. John Tortorella. He's interesting for sure. But there's always a method to his madness. I don't know that the media always focuses on that as much as the negative side of it, but he's super super smart. He breaks down the game. He understands the game at the pro level. He understands the grind of the season. He understands the grind of playoffs. As a player, I think that's where you feel comfortable in a playoff situation is, you're underneath a guy who's been there before. He's won a cup before. And it just makes you be able to kind of relax into your situation and play your game. And he definitely demands a lot. I really can't speak for right now, but when I had him, he demanded a lot. His camps were really hard. He was really hard, but fair as well. And that's a guy that I have a lot of respect for, and a guy that I reached out to and talked with since becoming a coach. Not too often, but someone that I really look at as you know a good person to follow in his habits as a coach, the work that he put in, the preparation he put in, and just his level of passion towards helping players and helping reach a common goal. And it's a guy that I definitely model certain things I do in my coaching off of him.